guys, Andrea Mills here. Today I'm going to give you a update on how our pregnancy is coming along. I meant to do this a couple days ago, but I took a nap instead and I didn't get it done. And I took a nap this afternoon and I'm almost not going to get it done now, so now my lighting's not as good because it's later in the day. But in case this is your first time watching, Tom and I have 8 children. We have 5 sons and 3 daughters. So we're expecting our 9th baby in April. And let's see, I am 19 weeks and 5 days, I think, today. I'm looking at my little book here. What is today? Today is the 14th. Yes, that's what I am. I'm 19 weeks and 5 days. We are going to have an ultrasound on Saturday, so it's just a few days away, and we'll get to find out if we're having a boy or a girl, so that's going to be exciting. So I plan to vlog that whole day so that you guys can go along with us and experience that with us. So we are planning to have an unassisted birth again this time, and I'm doing my own prenatal care, so I have a video on how I do that if anyone's interested in watching that. So on Sunday, I was... since my due date is the 12th of April, I like to do things on routine. And so on the 12th of each month, for the beginning at least, that's when I'm doing my monthly checkup and checking my urine and weight and all those kinds of things. So everything is looking really good so far. Last month, I think when we talked about this, I had lost 4 pounds since the beginning of my pregnancy, which is something that has happened with my last several pregnancies. I seem to lose weight for quite a while. And this time I was down 4 pounds as of my last month's checkup. This month I've gained back 3 pounds, so I'm now just 1 pound less than where I started from. I hope you can't hear all the scuffling going on out there. I closed my bedroom door, but there's lots of kids and craziness going on out in the living room. It's actually late enough that Tom's home now, and I don't know. Things just get all exciting when Dad comes home. So some of you were wondering about the chart I've been using, so I'm going to show you on tracking my pregnancy eating. This is something I have difficulty with because I tend to not eat frequently enough or eat enough just in general living, because life is just busy all the time and I have a hard time stopping and feeding myself. So when I'm pregnant, I try to make a much greater effort to eat well. I think that eating well is the key basically to a good, healthy, easy pregnancy. And I would like to say that when I say eating well, I don't mean like being uptight over eating all the right things and not eating the bad things and all that. I just mean eating enough good things and just having plenty of nutrients for the baby. I still drink my soda that I always do, and I still enjoy snacks and things like that. Not that I eat a lot of that kind of stuff, but I don't worry about avoiding bad things. I just try to make sure that I've added in all the good things that I need. So I made my chart based on Dr. Brewer's pregnancy diet, which is, you know, I had a pregnancy journal for my first few pregnancies, and I think that the pregnancy diet that they had in there is basically the same thing. And then with my 4th pregnancy, I think, somewhere in there, 4th or 5th, I came across Dr. Brewer's work, and I followed that pregnancy diet with the rest of my babies, but I think it was basically the same thing. So I made this laminated chart here, and I'm gonna try, I haven't done it yet, but I'm gonna try to make one, a printable one that on my blog, so if anybody wants to print one off. But it just has the food groups that he has for you, and then I have a list of what kinds of things constitute so like for a serving of milk or calcium, it's like a cup of milk, a cup of yogurt, 1 1/4 ounces of cheese, what is that, a 1/4 cup of cottage cheese, 3 tablespoons of Parmesan cheese, or a cup of ice cream. There were more things on his list. I just wrote down the things that I would actually eat because I'm kind of picky, so I didn't bother like writing in stuff that I know I'm not going to eat anyways. And then I made a little spot here to use my little dry erase marker, and I erased everything before I shot the video so that it was nice and clean for you guys. But anyways, I just mark it like that throughout the day as I eat my servings. So for a single baby, that's what, 4 servings of milk or calcium foods. There's a whole list. If you don't eat dairy, he has a whole list of alternative foods that can be used instead. An egg or 2 eggs a day, 6 servings of meat or protein, and like that would be like an ounce of meat would be 1 serving, or a slice of deli meat, some cheese, beans and rice mixed together. So that was 6 or more of the meat, 2 dark green vegetables, 5 or more of the grains, starchy vegetables or fruits. So basically anything that wasn't on the dark green vegetables, all other fruits and vegetables pretty much go into this category because it's like encompassing everything else. I just have to show you on the back here. Apparently I accidentally loaded one of the kids' pictures into the printer, and so I printed my chart on one of Solomon's drawings. Anyway, then there's, I'm trying to see through this, but now I'm getting to the part where the drawing is. I can't see very good. It's 2 or more servings of vitamin C foods, 5 or more servings of fat, 1 or more servings of vitamin A foods. Serving of liver once a week is an optional thing. I don't like liver, but I do take desiccated liver tablets once a week. And then the rest of these were not necessarily part of his diet, but I put them down just for my own, to remind me to take my herbs and supplements, to drink my pregnancy tea if I'm using it, to get some sunshine every day, and to get some exercise every day. My friend that's having twins, I just made up a chart for her to keep on her refrigerator. It's so much food. I don't know how, it's like a full-time job to feed yourself when you're growing 2 babies at once, because she has to have like 12 servings of meat or a meat substitute, and that, you know, it's 12 ounces of meat basically a day, or the equivalent. And how many, like 8 or 10 of milk? It was a lot. And her chart is different because he's actually got a few other categories that I didn't put down because I didn't feel like I needed to be reminded, like salt, eating enough salt. Yeah, I don't remember what else. But so for hers, the whole thing was stuff that was specific to the diet that he talks about. Mine was a little different than hers, and I also put more options on hers because she's not me and she's not as picky, so I made sure that there was more examples of what's acceptable. Anyway, so for the most part, I'm doing pretty good about getting enough of everything. Sometimes days get busy and I skip things, or I just don't get to eating something. So what I've been trying to do is go for an overall, over the course of a week, make sure I have everything. So if I, like, for one day don't eat any eggs, then a couple days later I might eat a couple extra eggs and go back and mark the ones that I missed, so that I am still getting the overall diet, even if day to day I'm not exactly getting everything in. Anyway, so I feel like I eat probably twice as much food on this diet, but I still lose weight, which is weird, I guess. I don't know. I actually have wondered, there's a book that I read once called Eat More to Get Thin, and she talked about the feast or famine cycle, and how, you know, when you try to diet, that your body basically goes into a famine state where it holds on to everything. It slows down your metabolism and all that. And if you can eat more, your body will have more energy and, you know, start letting go of extra pounds. And I've thought maybe there's something to that, because every time I'm pregnant, my last several pregnancies, and I really try to eat a lot more food, my weight starts to go down. So I don't know. So lots of you guys were asking about my sister who was having a baby, and she had her baby on the 10th of November, so 4 days ago. His name is Cooper, and he was 7 pounds 13 ounces. And I'm going to tell you about how her birth went, and then I want to talk about something related to that afterwards. She went into the hospital, and I'm not sure how far along she was, like how far dilated she was when she first went in, but at the point that she was 5 centimeters dilated, they broke her water, and then they were going to give her an epidural. So they went and got the anesthesiologist to do the epidural, and she said while they were waiting for him, she felt a lot of pressure, and she said she had an inexperienced nurse. This was literally the first delivery she was responsible for, and she felt like if she had had a nurse with more experience, she probably would have picked things up a little faster about what was going on. But Amy just kept telling her she had a lot of pressure, and she kept feeling like she needed to get up, but she said she could barely take a step without having a contraction. And the nurse was just kind of joking with her and not taking seriously that there's anything really going on significant. And so the anesthesiologist comes in, and she sat down on the bed, and he started to do the epidural. And she said that her husband was sitting in front of her, and she was having a lot of intense feelings. And she said, I was thinking this was the worst labor I've ever had. It was so painful already, and how am I going to go through this many hours more of this? But it turns out she was having the baby. So she says all of a sudden she realized his little head's coming out, and so she yells out that that's what's happening. And the anesthesiologist yells at the nurse to go call the doctor, and tells her husband to help her get up onto the bed. So they're both trying to lift her onto the bed, and she said before she even got her feet completely up on the bed, the baby was out, and the anesthesiologist basically caught him. and that was it. It was over already, and everyone was quite in shock. She said the door to her room was completely wide open, and her other kids were down in the waiting room. They heard everything happening, saw the doctor running down the hall, and they thought, oh my gosh, what's going on? But anyways, so the point of this is that she experienced the what Dr. Michelle Odant calls the fetus ejection reflex. I had never heard of this until I had 6 kids, I think, and I never experienced it myself until then. But the French obstetrician Michelle Odant talks a lot about about hormones and what he calls the fetus ejection reflex. So I guess let me back up here. We're going to talk a little bit about a uterus. I wish I'd known all these things from the beginning. That's why I'm sharing all this with you, because if somebody here is like having a first baby or something, I think this is good information to have. So your uterus has 3 types of muscles in it. It has long muscles that push the baby out. It's got the circular muscles that open the uterus or open the cervix. And then it's got kind of a mesh of muscles that are kind of like the fabric that holds everything together. So when you're in labor, it's mainly those circular muscles that are opening with each contraction and getting wider. But your emotional state or mental state can affect those muscles. They were designed, if we're in an unsafe situation, to be able to slow our labors down. And I feel like for a lot of people, the failure to progress in labor is oftentimes less of a physical thing than it is an emotional one, and not feeling safe or not wanting to do this might slow your labor down a lot, because you're basically signaling your uterus that you're not safe and that it needs to stop making this baby come out. Once the uterus is open, then it's the job of the long muscles to actually push the baby out. And this happens, or this is completely able to happen without your effort or cooperation. The first time I actually read about this, I didn't know that's what it was called. It didn't say that in the story, but I read about this lady who had epilepsy, and she had a seizure when she went into labor, and she was at home alone when it happened, and she was unconscious on her bathroom floor and gave birth to twins while she was unconscious. And I thought, how could that possibly happen? And when she came to, I think maybe she'd already called her husband before it happened, like when she went into labor. So by the time he got home, though, he found her on the floor, unconscious, and there's these 2 babies, and they thought one of them was dead. It turns out it wasn't, but he rushes them to the hospital and everything. But I'm thinking, when I had babies, they tell me, every little step of the way how far I'm progressed in labor, and then when I'm dilated to 10, they tell me it's time to start pushing, and then they tell me when to push, and it was a lot of effort. So I'm thinking, how did she give birth to twins without any effort or cooperation on her part whatsoever? And later is when I read about this fetus ejection reflex, and I'm like, oh, so basically your body will birth a baby. I'm sure there are times that this isn't true, But generally speaking, your body's made to birth a baby without you having to do anything but allow it to happen. That's really what my sister experienced. She wasn't pushing. She wasn't trying to make the baby come out. It was just time, and the baby came out all by itself. And when they're telling her to stop pushing, there's nothing for her to stop doing because she's not doing it. And that did not happen with any of my first 6 babies. All of those babies were assisted births, and I was directed basically by either the doctor or the midwife, depending on where I was having the baby, on how far along I was, when it was time to push, telling me to push. And I feel like that completely overrides that hormonal thing that needs to happen that Michelle O'Donnell talks about. The hormones that produce an orgasm are the same ones that produce this fetus ejection reflex, and you need a similar environment for that to happen. You need calm, quiet. You need to be like in a different mental state, not one where people are talking to you and bringing you into this, you know, concrete world, but one where you're kind of in this other emotional place. You know, when we had Sophia, she was an unassisted birth. I woke up at it's like 5 after 6 in the morning, and I went into the bathroom, and when I was in the bathroom, I had a contraction, and I realized right away this is already a serious contraction. I'd already slept through apparently early labor, and so I woke Tom up, and he got the birth pool ready, and it was January, so when we were having some difficulty with the hose and all that, and I was just sitting on the couch, and I remember thinking, first off, I had no idea how far dilated I was. I just remember saying to myself, or, you know, coaching myself, just to let it happen. Don't fight against it. Just let it open up and let the baby come out. And then I was of two minds the whole time, because for one, it was like, man, this is escalating quickly, I kept saying, because it seemed like it was getting pretty hard and fast very quickly. But the other part of me was thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be a horrible labor because it's already so painful, and I've got hours and hours to go. But it turned out that wasn't the case. But Tom finally got the birth pool filling, and he came and sat down on the couch next to me, and all of a sudden I had this contraction that was the birth ejection, or the fetus ejection reflex. It literally like picked me up off the couch and I came down onto the floor on my knees. And I remember, well, Michelle O'Donnell says that a lot of times right as it's about to happen, a woman will have, she'll verbalize something like, I'm gonna die, or something like that. Like this is her moment of completely giving herself over to what's happening. And it's a complete loss of self, in a sense, which I didn't say anything like that, but I remember looking at Tom and feeling like if I could see myself, I looked like a deer caught in the headlights. Like I feel like my eyes were wide open, and I'm like, what's happening to me, kind of a thing. And I remember him just looking down at me and telling me, get in the pool. And that's when I'm like, oh, now I realize what's happening. And I stepped over into the pool, and I was not even completely down in the water when she's already coming out. And again, I thought to myself, I don't need to do anything. I remember consciously thinking, I just need to relax and she's going to come out. And she did. I did not push a single time. She just, out she came. My body completely did it by itself. And I'm sure this has happened to plenty of you out there. It just had never happened to me before. And she was my biggest baby. She was 9 pounds, 13 ounces. And it was 7:20 in the morning when she was born. So it was an hour and 15 minutes from the time that I woke up till she was born. And it required literally no effort on my part. The only effort that I had was to relax and just let what my body was doing do it without fighting against it and without trying to control it. Now, with my next birth with Claudia, if you've watched my video on her birth story, you'll know all the story of how it happened, that she ended up being born at the hospital. But I still delivered the same way. When I had never had an epidural before, but I was so uncooperative with being induced and everything that they had me on high levels of Pitocin. And, you know, once I found out later, like, it was way higher than what is considered safe, and no Pitocin should be used to induce someone who's had more than 5 babies. I was not informed of any of this, or I definitely would not have cooperated, which I didn't want to anyways, but in my heart, I was not cooperating. And I had been on Pitocin for, I want to say 12 hours. My memory's getting fuzzy. I guess I could consult my video and see what I said on there. But I had literally still, after all that time, not dilated even a half a centimeter. And so the obstetrician was making plans to take this to the next level, and obviously cesarean was going to be on the table fairly quickly. And so I definitely did not want to go down that road. I was already much further down the intervention trail than I had ever imagined that I would be. And so I said, how about I'll take an epidural and maybe I will go to sleep and relax and wake up more cooperative and things will progress. So they went to get the anesthesiologist, and Tom lay down with me on the bed, and when we were laying there waiting, I think I gave in basically. It was, I think I finally, sorry this makes me emotional, but I finally accepted that nobody was going to let me go home, and this was going to go how I didn't want it to go, whether I liked it or not. And anyways, my labor actually started at that moment. And so the anesthesiologist comes in, and he gave me, or she gave me an epidural, and she told me that I had to lay flat on my back for 20 minutes before for the medicine to take effect. So this whole time I'm realizing this is serious labor. And I said to Tom a couple times, I don't remember what I said, but I just was letting him know that things were happening. But when I realized that I did not want to lay down and put my feet in stirrups and do all that, so I didn't tell them what was happening. And so I laid down there for the 20-minute time period, and during that 20 minutes it happened. The fetus ejection reflex took over. So I had, I literally dilated from 0 to 10, and the baby was born in about a 45-minute time period. And I didn't do anything. I didn't push. I just was there, and all of a sudden my body just took over and she was coming out. And of course everyone was shocked because they were not expecting that, but I was very thankful not to have to go through the putting your feet up in those stirrups and them telling you when to push and all that. And so I guess this is my encouragement for anyone that's having a baby, if at all possible, to avoid being checked, to tell you how far you are going, and to avoid having them coach you, I guess, because all of that interferes with your ability to let your body just take over. And believe me, it is so much easier to give birth to a baby when you literally don't do anything. You just be there and let it happen, and it will happen. You can be unconscious and it will still happen. It's much less traumatic and exhausting. I mean, with my sister, I was there for her first baby, and her face was just, purple when she was done pushing her baby out because she pushed for so long. And I know with my first baby, I pushed for an hour, and I never had to push that long after that. But I don't really know what the answer is when you're having a hospital birth, because it's very hard not to be coached and controlled through the whole thing. But if it's possible, avoid that, and just know in your heart that all you need to do is just be present. Let your mind go into that otherworldly place and just cooperate with what your body is doing. And the next thing you know, you're going to have a baby, and you don't even have to try. The baby just comes, and then you're holding your little one, and it's all amazing and wonderful and so much faster and easier than trying to control the whole thing. So I guess that's it for this pregnancy update. I don't even know. Oh, you probably are all wondering, how am I feeling? That would probably be a good thing to share on one of these, huh? Feeling great. Mostly I don't feel like I'm pregnant at all. I've been taking the progesterone creams continuing throughout my pregnancy, and it has several things in it besides progesterone, the one I'm using. One of them is vitamin B6. So I'm wondering if that's why I have not had really any morning sickness or all-day sickness or any kind of sickness. I haven't been able to try to predict very well what we're having this time, because usually I can tell by my pattern of sickness if we're going to have a boy or a girl, but I don't feel sick this time, so it doesn't help me out. And even with my other pregnancies, I have never been a person that gets overly sick during pregnancy, but there's some, so yeah. Anyways, the one thing I do have, which is consistent through all my pregnancies, is a mental nausea. I don't know what else to call it, but with my first pregnancy, I had a really hard time making a grocery list for a menu because thinking about food would make me sick. It wasn't eating it or smelling it or anything like that. It was thinking about it. So writing down food words would make me sick. And I remember one time going to the grocery store, or I went to the post office and I picked up the mail and it had a grocery store sale flyer. And I thought, well, I'll see if there's anything on sale that I want before I head home. So I start sitting in my car and I'm looking through the sale flyer. And the more I read and looked at those pictures, the sicker I felt. And I realized I'm just gonna have to go home. And so I headed home, and it's about a 5-block drive. And before I got home, I ended up stopping in the middle of the street and I opened my car door and I threw up on the street. And then I came home and, you know, brushed my teeth and everything and went back to the grocery store and I was fine. I'm like, that is so dumb. But it's still sort of that way. Not so bad, but things will set me off. Like, we'll be watching a video or something and something gross happens and I'm sitting there like this, covering my face. And Tom's like talking loud. One time we were in a movie theater, I think it was when I was pregnant with Sophia, and something gross was happening on the screen. And it was so cute how he immediately jumped into action. He reached over and he covered my ears, and he starts talking really loud. I don't even know what he was saying. It had nothing to do with anything, but he was just talking, trying to mask the sound that was coming from the screen because he knew I was going to lose it. And it's a lot harder to get out of a crowded movie theater than opening my car door and throwing up out the car door. So that does happen to me still. We'll be watching something and something happens and I have to go outside for a minute because it will make me sick, and it's just dumb. It's just all in my mind. But other than that, I've had a little trouble sleeping the last few nights. I wake up in the night and then I can't fall back asleep. So I end up taking long naps in the afternoon. And then, you know, I don't get my videos made because I'm napping all afternoon. But I feel really good. I generally don't even think about being pregnant most of the time. We did record the baby's heartbeat again, so as we leave today, I'll let you guys listen to that. For a while, I had a hard time finding it. It was just at a funny angle, and I couldn't do it, but I just couldn't do it. But Tom, he could, like, if he stood up over me and did the little Doppler, he could find it pretty easily. So I don't know why the angle it was, I couldn't find it. But now I can hear it all over the place. So now I have no trouble at all finding it. And it's always just so fun to lay there and listen to that little baby heartbeat. So I guess that's it for this time. I have some questions that some of you guys gave me on my request for Q&A video questions that have to do with pregnancy and things. But I'm going to save those for a future month. We're going to do 1 month where I just do lots of pregnancy and baby videos, so I'm going to save those questions for then. So I guess next time we talk pregnancy stuff, it'll be sometime next week. I'll have my vlog up of the ultrasound, and you guys can get to enjoy finding out with us what we're going to have. So I'll see you before that with some other videos, but thank you guys for coming over today, and I'll talk to you again very soon.